Kim. All right. Welcome, everybody. My name is Kristen Oropesa. I am here moderating the room for our presenter, Miss Jessica Reed. She's going to be talking to you today. During her presentation, if you have questions, we're going to ask that you direct them to the chat, and that'll allow us to, have Jessica stop, and I'll kind of interject with the questions as we go through. We'll be sharing her resources, anything she mentions in her presentation in the chat, so make sure to check that out. All right, Jessica, I'm going to pass it off to you.
All right. Hey, guys, my name is Jessica Reed. I am excited to present for you guys. This is my first time doing anything with CUE or any of that. We don't have that kind of group here in Georgia or Alabama, so I think it's really cool what y'all have. And I've always wanted to come to California, so this is kind of the closest I get to right now. But I'm excited to talk to you guys, and so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right. All right, so we are just going to go ahead and get into it. All right, so this is collaboration in the classroom for ESL students and special ed students, but it can really be for anybody. In Georgia, we say ESL for English. English as a second language. I'm not sure particularly where everyone is, but that is what we do. And then SPED, of course, is anyone with an IEP, or even you could consider a 504 as someone who may need some extra things. My name is Jessica Reed, like I say. My Twitter is Kentucky Girl in Alabama. I am a University of Kentucky graduate who lives in Alabama. I am a Google for Education certified trainer, and I'm also a Google for Education certified innovator. And my innovator projects actually will hopefully be coming out next September. I'm writing a book with EduMatch called the Collaborative Prenup, and I'm super pumped to have it. It's due at the end of October, so I've got to get my butt in gear. But hopefully you can get some resources here, and as my site continues to grow, you can get some for actual collaboration with co-teaching. But we're really going to talk about working with kids in the classroom today and how they can work together. Like I said, I'm Jessica Reed. I am a middle school special ed teacher who loves to talk any and everything Google. Like I said earlier about Google Innovator. I am also what we call a resource teacher. So I have 3 classes, or actually 4. I have 6th, 7th, and 8th grade ELA with my students, and I have a small group classroom. And what it is I basically take the regular English class and kind of maybe slow it down a little bit, or maybe teach it in different ways to my students who are not in the regular inclusion classroom. They're in the smaller, just to have more support. I do enjoy what I do. I get to have the same kids every year, so it's kind of cool. By the time they go to 8th grade, I've established a lot of rapport and relationships with them. It was really hard where during the pandemic, I didn't get to see my 8th graders. So they're all freshmen now. I'm hoping I get to see them at some point. But, anyway, that's a whole nother story. And I don't want to get on my little soapbox or get sappy. But I enjoy what I do every day. All right, what are we going to talk about? Why collaboration for ESL or SPED? Different ways to individualize instruction for students. And I'm going to tell you how I actually use it in my classroom. I hate going to presentations and someone telling you all these great, wonderful things. And then you say, well, how do you use that? And they're like, I don't know. I use all of these things in my classroom. There may be 1 or 2 that I'm still kind of trying to learn about myself, but I use this in my classroom on a daily basis. All right, so here's our starting point. Collaboration is not a new concept in the classroom. And as we increase in technology and the project-based learning type activities, we need for the students to be able to work with each other. It's reality. Collaboration works for everyone. And my biggest thing about SPED students, or even ESL, is just because a student has some type of accommodation doesn't mean that they can't learn. you're not going to have a class full of gifted students. Your classroom is going to be full of any and every single student. It never dulls me that there is a new day every single day in my classroom, and somebody brings something to the table that I was not expecting. That's the fun of our job. It's also can be confusing because you don't know how to maybe help a student. And so maybe you'll get some good ideas for this. And collaboration can help with social skills. It can help with so much. And so we want to get those relationships and that understanding built in the classroom. All right, here's just a thought. This is the key to any and all collaboration. If you're married or if you're in a relationship or friendships, anything with family, you have to have communication. And this doesn't matter whether it's between a student and a teacher or a teacher and a teacher. You have to be willing to learn and talk from each other to really get to any type of positive learning to happen. And, you know, as a teacher, we tell our students all the time, you need to reflect and think about what happened. As a teacher, we need to do that ourselves. So that may mean taking the lesson that you thought was really great, throwing it away, or revamping it to make it meet the needs of your students. You have to communicate. If you are in a inclusion classroom, which is where you have two teachers, you have a teacher who's the subject teacher, you have a special ed teacher, there's a reason you guys are together. You have to communicate. There are reasons you have your students. They have to learn how to communicate, and that's not through the phone or through a text message. That is actual conversations with each other. Communication is the biggest thing to make any type of positive collaboration happen in your classroom and out of your classroom. All right, ELL students or ESOL students, these are students who may struggle with communication because English is not their first language. It's our job as a teacher to help them to figure out how to process things past the language barrier. And that is a hard thing to do sometimes, especially if you get a student who is in middle school and they come from Guatemala and they've come to Georgia and they don't speak any English. You know, that is hard. It's hard because all of a sudden their world has completely changed. And how do we help them? You know, it's especially with this whole pandemic, if we have learned that there's so much more to our students than just test scores. You know, we have our students are people. They have great ideas. They're going through things. Some of my kids are going through things at home that I've never even imagined. You know, I don't have to worry about where my food is coming from. My biggest issue of the day today was whether or not I was going to go get Chick-fil-A for lunch. You know, some of the stresses that my kids have had, I don't know. And if you tout that on, plus you don't understand the language, imagine how a kid feels. I personally can't even imagine what that's like. But we have to figure out how to help them. All right, SPED students, maybe because I'm a special ed teacher, I've been a special ed teacher longer than I've been a general ed teacher. I've taught kindergarten, fourth grade. I've been a paraprofessional in high school. That was interesting for a math class. I'm not a math person. I have spent more time as a middle school special ed teacher. My undergrad is elementary education. I'm not the cutesy elementary teacher, just not. I love being a special ed teacher. My brother had a significant learning disability. He is the type of kid who there is no gray. It's either black or white. Doesn't handle transition wells. My mom was a high school special ed teacher. She just retired. She's enjoying retirement, just FYI, and lets me know that all the time. But students who are SPED or have some type of disability, they deserve every effort to have an equal opportunity in the classroom as their peers. Just because a student may not be able to complete an assignment one way doesn't mean that they can't do it. It's just our job as a teacher to figure out how they learn, help them figure out how they learn, and help them figure out how to get mastery of a subject. And we'll talk more about that as we're going through. But I just kind of want to set those thought processes when we're talking about these students. And unfortunately, I don't have any gifted students. And so some of the things that I'm going to talk about how I use them is going to be for my personal classroom. But maybe you can take some of my ideas or some of the ideas that I talk about and make them applicable to your classroom. All right, why Google and Google Classroom? My school district, we use Google Suite and Google Classroom, so that's what I'm most used to, and I feel most comfortable in sharing in presentations and how I use it in the classroom. So I'm not very familiar with, I mean, I'm familiar with like Microsoft Office, but I'm not very familiar with Microsoft Teams or any of that type of thing. I'm assuming it's very similar to Google Meets. We just use Google in our classroom because we just became a one-on-one school probably about 3 years ago, and we use Google. So that's where I'm going to be talking mainly from. All right, why Google Classroom? As a teacher, it can make your life easier. And as a student, this is my favorite thing for middle school. They can't lose anything. They can have everything in one place, and they can work from even their phone. Even if they don't have a Chromebook, they somehow have a phone. Sometimes it's a nicer phone than what we have, but they have phones. But now they may or may not have Wi-Fi. All right, how do we do this? How are we going to help these kids? And I just think the emojis are just fun. All right, SPED and EL, like I said, the strategies we're going to talk can be used for either group or can be used for your regular classroom. Why reinvent the wheel? All right, so one way Google Classroom can be used is you can set it up for inclusion or a push-in model with a co-teacher. There is a way that you can collaborate where each teacher is responsible for different activities, including updating the calendar to creating assignments. The really good thing about Google Classroom for collaboration with two teachers for different classrooms is that every teacher has access to the work that a student does. And this allows to see how both teachers to see how the student is progressing in the class and if there's some difficulties, may or may not. Now, inclusion is really great because sometimes you have kids who are better with you than the other teacher and vice versa. So it's just kind of like, the family situation, the mom and dad, or, whatever your family dynamic may be. Google Classroom is great for caseload. A teacher can create classrooms for each different student, and then you can take in account their different IP goals and assign them individual work. This allows you to have data in a quick and easy manner. You can have, for example, like I said, a classroom where all your students are teachers, and then you can share documents with each other. I will tell you, you need to be careful maybe about having each of your kids all in one if you're going to be using it for data. Data is king. You've got to have that, just like when we have IEPs or legal documents. Anytime that they're living, breathing legal documents, basically. Anytime that you want to have a kid and you say, yeah, he knows how to read. Well, the parent, and I've had a parent pull this out on me, where's my documentation? You have to have documentation, and Google Classroom can help with that. All right, and the same idea for ESL students. You have to be able to show that they're making progression in the language acquisition, and this is something that you can do. All right, basically Google Classroom can serve as the hub for activities. You can use it as a gradebook, but what's more important than the actual Google Classroom is the activities you use in the Google Classroom, which is what we're going to talk about. All right, here are some Google activities that you can use for collaboration. Google is free. I really enjoy the fact that on Google Docs, I don't have to hit save every 5 seconds like you do in Microsoft Office. All right, so Google Docs. Students can create an interactive study guide to be shared with one another with appropriate hyperlinks and activities. This is really cool because if you are digital, I don't know what everybody's, different school situation is right now. We have two options. You are either face-to-face or you're doing a virtual school through another program. And the face-to-face has been great because I have a lot of my kids back. I have several of my kids that are doing the virtual, which I still meet with them on a weekly basis. But if you're having the kids work, maybe a hybrid model you're in, you can have the kids create an interactive study guide. Everybody can be on the Google Doc at the same time. You just have to make sure that they understand how to do it. Any of these activities, this is something that, unless your kids have done it before in another classroom, they're not going to automatically know how to do it. It's something that you have to kind of practice, kind of like your routines and expectations that you set at the beginning of the school year. This is something you would have to do as well. Students creating an interactive study guide, maybe you assign each student a different color, or you have 4 different documents. It's however you want to do it. But having one document instead of 25 and having all the kids work on it together is kind of cool because they're able to kind of see and play off of each other. Hey, you found this. What about this for an idea? So you're talking about theme. Theme is a really hard one, and I'll talk about that more, but maybe you have some kids who found some different resources on themes. All right, slides. You can create a share deck where each of the students is required for 1 to 3 slides based on the topic. So this could be something if you were to do, I get in California, you guys had all the wildfires going. This could be something that you could talk about, a real event. A lot of times when you have students who are able to have a text to self connection, the kids really get into it. And I'm laughing because I have a student every time we talk about anything, he brings up firefighting because he's a volunteer firefighter in our little community. So that's why I was laughing. But he could come up with his own Google slides about, if we were talking about wildfires and he was creating about how firefighters are helping. Maybe you have another kid, if you were in elementary, talking about community helpers, maybe with the wildfires, how are the police helping? How are other people helping in the community? Just a thought. It's great when everyone has access to it, especially if someone says, well, so-and-so did something, so-and-so, you can just show them, hey, here we go, we can go back, or you can see who did what. Google Forms, there's so many different things that you can do with the form. You can create breakout rooms, you can do so many different things. But one of the best things that I think is to have the students, once they collaborate, maybe on a share deck, you really want to be more of a project manager, or facilitator rather than always being the one that teaches. Because if the students can learn from one another, they're going to do something better. Students can, through a Google form, maybe you have students do a project and they want to share their thoughts. They can reflect in this form that's only shared with you in a safe space. It is really hard for a lot of students to share their thoughts verbally, especially if they don't want to be chastised by their classmates, or maybe they don't want Sally to know that they thought they did a really bad job, or maybe, especially if you've ever been in grad school, maybe you've done a presentation and you have that one person who doesn't do anything, but yet they still get the same grade. This could be something that you could use with your students to say, well, hey, who do you think did you feel did a fair amount of work? What could be different about this project? This could also have the students, if you did a lesson and you thought it was just great, but you want feedback from your kids, it is kind of a hard pill to swallow sometimes because your kids are going to tell you straight up whether they like something or not. And maybe while you thought something was great, you have a student who's like, well, Miss Reed, I didn't really learn anything. That in your pod that you did not help me. That is something that makes you reflect. You could have the students create their own forms, ask questions to each other. There's so many different options you can do for forms. I just really like the idea of reflecting because then it creates growth in your students. It's also neat to kind of see how they have progressed from maybe the beginning of the year to the end of the year. If you have a student who has difficulty with social learning, and maybe you have a student with autism and he struggles to work in a group, maybe you're able to have him reflect at the beginning of the year of like, how did this project go? And then maybe, 9 weeks in, he's doing really great. Have him reflect and have him compare the two to see how much he's grown. That's something, a lot of times autistic students with autism are not aware of themselves. And so that's something that they could start to learn. Or maybe they're struggling with a teacher and they want to share that with you. They maybe want to be more of a self-advocate. Anything that just could help create a safe space. I may be going on a tangent, but it's really important for our students with special needs or ESL students to become self-advocates because they're going to know. Now, sometimes you may have a student who is going to be a complete jerk and say that they don't know how to read to a sub when you know very well that they do. And that just happened to me. And I had a conversation with a student and he was like, and I said, I understand you like have the screen reader read to you, but you can still read. Don't pull that on me. It's one of those things that the students, if they can see the growth, they'll be better. Anyway, Google Sheets. Students can use sheets to organize materials for science experiments and create tables. Maybe you're having the students work on math problems together and they're working on a work problem. They have to be able to share how they got their answer. They can use the sheet to organize all the different numbers, and then you can show them how to do all the different formulas, and then they're able to create a table and share that result through a Google slide. You can build upon each of the things for the activities. It just really depends on your comfort level and what you think your kids can handle. All right, another one of my favorite things to do is Google Sites. Sites can teach students how to create something that maybe on the web. So if you have students who are working together, maybe they are creating your economics and you have your students create a project or a product, and maybe they created, some type of new wallet that was able to hold everything, which, as a woman, hey, that'd be a great idea. The students have to go through that whole process of branding, learning how, supplies, needs, mints, all that kind of good stuff. That could be a way they could do it. They can learn how to create maybe a commercial through screencast by using their Google site. While it may not really take off, that is something that a website is going to be something that could lead to a potential job skill. I know that many of our students, especially students with special needs, may not go to college. There are several cool programs for students with IEPs that they can go. Like there's one here in Georgia called Kennesaw State University has a program. Texas A&M has a program. University of Alabama has a program where students can come live on campus and they can experience college life but may not get a college degree. My brother earned several certifications for restaurant business that can help him get a job, but it taught him how to live independently. This is something that if the students are good with computers and they learn how to build websites, that could lead to a potential job. Coding, programming, all of those kind of skills that I didn't think anything about that when I was in school. Could be, maybe you have a student who wants to be a plumber. They could say, oh yeah, I remember how to use Google Sites and create a site for their plumbing business. I mean, plumbers are you can't find one around here. If you do, they are always busy. So that could be something. You just have to kind of, instead of just thinking of what is now, if you have your students start to think of what could happen in the future and how Google Sites or how any of this could affect them, they're going to get a connection and they're going to want to do it, especially if it's their choice. Students with disabilities oftentimes by other teachers can be so limited. So if you can start to broaden their horizons by any type of activities, you're going to get such a better result from them, especially if it creates student ownership. All right, so here's a tip. When using Google applications, make sure through the application Google Classroom that you share it so everyone has access to it. So maybe that you are creating different groups and you want group A to use it, but you don't want group B, that you've created the right projects. You can share the information with the student or with the parent for the Google Classroom and that kind of thing, because that will keep the student from saying he or she lost it. Unfortunately, in middle school, we magically lose everything. We also forget to capitalize our name because of texting. So this could be one way that you can make sure the students keep everything together. All right, here's how I use Google Apps in my classroom. We do a lot of collaborative projects with, I don't like to do just things one-on-one. I think if my students can work together, it creates better relationships, which is what I'm more concerned with. I'm not concerned with my test scores at the end of the year. I'm more concerned to see if my kids really did master anything. So docs, when discussing theme, I have my students choose a color on a doc, and then they have to identify at least 2 themes from watching different movie trailers. We did that with Finding Nemo and the Addams Family cartoon that came out about a year and a half ago, and it was really cool because my students were able to kind of see, was it Finding Nemo? Was it about family? Was it about keep swimming? What was it about? And vice versa with Addams Family. Theme is such a topic that it's not like main idea where you can read the paragraph. Theme is something that you actually have to think about. And so it was really cool to see my kids work together and try to figure out the themes for those. And it led to good conversation as well. All right, so slides. I love Edgar Allan Poe. I'm super pumped. It's about to be October. I'm obsessed with Hocus Pocus. We do a bunch of that kind of stuff in my classroom. Edgar Allan Poe is my absolute favorite. We start really talking about him in 7th grade, and then in 8th grade, I really, really get into it. I talk about how with my kids, his whole life history, like how all the women in his life died, and he didn't have any money, and like his history anyway, all that. How does that affect how his writing? We really get into the Raven, we get into Annabelle Lee, we get into the Telltale Heart, any of that stuff. I love it. We did the end of the assessment for my kids, and this was a collaborative project because each of my students were responsible for 2 stanzas. I had broken the Raven down into different slides for the stanzas. So on one side was, the stanza that they were responsible for. And then on the other side, the student had to explain what they thought the stanza meant. And it was really kind of cool to see how they interpreted what he was saying when the Raven said nevermore, what he thought, especially when the kids knew Edgar Allan Poe's background. And they had to take that information and put it into the 2 slides. And it was neat because it limited what they could say. They could find video clips. They could decorate the slide however they wanted to express themselves. And it was a very cool slide deck to have. That may not, some of the things I'm talking about may not think of collaboration to you, but when you work with your kids on something rather than just handing them a worksheet and making them think, it really does start that talk, that flow of conversation. And it's cool to see what your kids know. Forms, I did do this because I wanted to know what my kids thought about my lesson, and they let me know real quick what they thought. I think I did a Nearpod on main idea, and my kids told me it was stupid. Now granted, they were 7th graders and everything sometimes is stupid, but a couple of my kids really did give me a good point saying, I didn't really understand this. Can you go more into detail? Before I gave a quiz, I was maybe a little able to break down things a little bit more and work with them in particular. So it really did help me evaluate myself, which is something that I struggle with. All right, so here are some really cool websites that I use in my classroom that I thought you could possibly use with your kids or even in small groups. Padlet to me is very similar to, and if you have the resource, if you click on it, it'll take you straight to the website. Padlet, that is a paid service, but you get 3 free a month. It reminds me back in the day when you would have like the board, you would have like a post-it and say parking lot. This is where you can post a notes on a board, and it's a great and easy way for an assessment, or it can be an exit slip or an entrance slip, and just real quick and easy, and you get to see. And it's neat to see what the kids think about each other's things too as well, and it can lead to good talking points. Flipgrid, if you take nothing else from my presentation, please use Flipgrid. Flipgrid is a great way to communicate and a great way to collaborate, especially students who struggle with writing, students who struggle with language. Flipgrid, if you don't know, is a free, and there's so much more that recently they just keep updating and updating it. It is a way that you can have the students record a response. So maybe you want to have the kids watch a video clip and you want to see their reactions, or want them to share. This is a way they can do it in a safe space. You can limit the time, and then they can take a selfie, and then they can respond to each other in a safe way. Will tell you that I've gotten more out of my kids who, when they like verbally can tell me so many things, but then when they go to write it down, they have lost it. It's like that processing. And so I know my kids have mastered something when they talk. Now, granted, that may be hard to explain to a parent who wants to see something on paper, but when I can show them the clip, like, hey, your kid is understanding this. I'm doing something right. It's really cool, and it's really cool to see that the kids interact with each other. And if you have a student who has difficulty with English, Flipgrid can be something that can help. Maybe you can have them working with a partner one-on-one, recording different things to practice to say or learn how to say things. I had my kids actually teach one another last year on, I think it was pronouns, different pronouns that you can have. There's all those different grammar rules, and it was just cool to kind of see. So please use Flipgrid. It's free. It's an awesome tool, and I'll get off my soapbox, but it's a very cool tool. Vocaroo, this is an online recording website that could be used for conversations, etc. I will tell you, you have to download it or it'll be gone. It's just a great way if you have a student who is struggling with English and you want to have them maybe hear you say something, or you've read a book and you want them to listen to it, this could be one way. It's just something that could be a great recording. Gym Kit is very much like a hoot. It is really cool for middle schoolers. They can compete against one another. There's a free version and a paid version. I use the free version. It's really cool coming in Halloween because they do zombies versus humans. And the kids love to play together because there's like money and all this fun stuff. Definitely check it out. Just really cool. Edpuzzle is something that I am enjoying. I'm starting to learn a little bit more about. You can use it with YouTube videos, and what's cool about it is you can have a video and then you can stop it and pose a question, and so the kids actually have to stop. They can't just like exit out and answer the question. It's just a really quick, easy assessment. It makes the students stop and think, and it's just fun. So I like to use it. All right, some more websites that I use. BrainPop, unfortunately, my school, we did not renew our subscription. I wish we had. It's a great website that offers a lot of information on different topics, includes videos, quizzes, etc. There is a BrainPop ESOL version that's really great. YouTube has a lot of BrainPop video, or BrainPop has its own channel that you can definitely check out. Vocabulary, I love Vocabulary. It's an educational hip hop website, and it has songs, videos, and additional materials for students in grades K through 12. You know, it is BrainPop, Vocabulary. All these websites are great, but it is one of those things that you want to use sparingly, especially a student with special needs, because if they get in the routine of something, they're going to have difficulty with transitioning. You want to incorporate as many technology tools as you can, as appropriately as you can. Screencastify, I know there's Loom, there's Screenomatic. I prefer Screencastify just myself. The Chrome extension that allows you to record 3 different ways. You can record where it's just your face, or you can do where it's just the slideshow or whatever you're recording, or you can do it where it's both, where it's like the slideshow and your face. It is really cool to see and to use. It's one of those things that there is a free version, but the paid version is like $29, and it's worth it because you can edit and do all these kind of neat things. It's unlimited time. I love Screencastify. It's one way that I have actually shared with parents recently on how to access Zoom or any of those kind of things. So please check that out. It is something that may be able to help you. Maybe you have a student who wants to explain to you how to do a problem, or you have those students working together and they create a Screencastify of how they did something, and then you can post it to your website to share for resources. A really cool way that the students can collaborate with each other. All right, Wakelet. I know you guys had a really cool session earlier about Wakelet. I'm just now getting into Wakelet. It's just a fun and easy way to capture and organize in types of different multimedia resources. Google Meets and Zoom. This is a great way you can see your students and teach. It can be formal or informal. It's however you decide. I do think, or there's Microsoft Teams. I do think that if you're collaborating with your students and you maybe want to have a student teach something and let them be the teacher, that's a really cool way to maybe build some self-confidence. You know, a lot of times though, one of the downfalls of digital learning is that maybe you have a student who doesn't want to be seen on camera, and that's okay. It really is. I mean, that's personal preference, but it really is. You know, sometimes students don't want to share their background. That's okay. Google Keep is just an easy way to keep things organized in a fun manner. It can be shared with everyone in a project. So maybe you have a student create a Google Keep about a project that they're doing, working on a Google site, and everyone has access to it, so they can kind of keep who's doing what. Or if you are a collaborating teacher and you want to have to create a Google Keep with one of your teachers, this is a great way to see who's doing what, who's keeping what touch with what parents, and vice versa. I just did Padlet. I didn't realize I did it twice. That's okay. If you are teaching a student with ESOL or ELL, whatever you may call it, there is a need maybe for some translator apps. Microsoft has a great translator app. You can translate conversations across the devices for one-on-one chats and for larger group interactions, or Google Translate. There's free services that instantly translates words, phrases, and web pages between English and over 100 other languages. There may be some difficulty though, because I know, just think about just in English, think of how many different things we have, or different ways of speaking. So that may be something. I know the Spanish language, there's 100 different versions of it. So think about that. Maybe the different dialects are going to be different. So, that could be a struggle, but at least it's a good basis for you if you have a student. And a lot of times, if you have someone, like we have several students who maybe you end up using the student as a translator, this could be one way that maybe you're kind of building the rapport with the parents by trying to learn the language. You never want to make a student whose parents are coming from another country. Their world has already been shook enough coming to this country. You don't want to make them feel inferior just because they can't speak English very well. That's not a good way. We're all here together to work to make sure that the student's learning, however that may be. And so if you can reach out, even if it's just through a translation app, you're going to be building a relationship, which is what's going to help that kid make a better transition to your classroom. All right, Google Calendar. Google Calendar is something that you can use with teachers, something you can use with your administrators, and something that you can collaborate with your students. You can share a calendar, schedule meetings, send reminders, invite to meetings, set up tasks. As a special ed teacher, I use Google Calendar to share information with other team members, or even, for a IEP meeting, we have to have an LEA, which is like a principal or someone who's higher up. We have to have a general ed teacher, a special ed teacher, and then we also have to have a parent present because it's the IEP team, and usually the student as well. So this is something that I can share with everyone. Now, in middle school, our students don't have their own email. I'm sure they have email, but they don't have like a school email. So that's something. We do have a calendar in Google Classroom where like all of the different assignments are shown. So that could be something that you could use. I will tell you, calendars can be shared using the calendar app. You have to click 3 dots to the next to the calendar you want to share, choose settings and sharing, and you can share with specific people or email groups. You can also adjust permissions, because maybe you have that one person who just keeps changing things and you don't want them to have it. That's okay. You can also set up notifications, which is kind of neat. Here are just some cool websites for if you have students with ELL or SPED. For literacy picture books, I know somebody did a presentation using Epic Books. That's one cool thing. Tween Tribune Junior, level nonfiction, the News ELA. There are some that you can get for free, but it is a paid service. And then Learning Chocolate is a great resource. It's a vocabulary platform where you can have the word and it'll read it to you. And it's just a great way for some students, especially younger grades, to kind of get used to identifying different things. You could even, if you have a pre-K or a preschooler, like I have a 3-year-old, I can use that with her to kind of start learning how to recognize different things that, everything has a name. So, all right, data is the viral part to see if and how students are meeting goals, which is what you're going to have for ELL or special ed students. Maybe they have a social goal of like working together. It's really important to have proof of these goals, and Google Classroom can serve as a data binder for teachers. As a teacher, it's your job. You can just use Sheets or Docs. They could kind of create a gathering tool to share all that information. You can even share, if you are a middle school teacher, maybe you want to share a document with a kid that they feel like their responsibility for their own data as well. That might be something cool to try. All right, so while Google can be all great and everything, there are ways to avoid some disasters with Google things. So you want to maybe make sure to color code on docs so it can kind of help who is in what on what document. Make sure to share one folder for collecting work in Google Drive with the kids so everyone has access. Use their revision history to help with editing. Maybe add some tables to help organize things, and then have both teachers and students use the comment feature and all and add thoughts and cheats for revision. That's really kind of cool because if you have students who are collaborating maybe on a paper and you have peer editing, the comment feature can help, and vice versa. It is important for you to teach though the kids on how to appropriately comment to each other and not just be like, hey man, what's up? The comment feature is not Facebook or Twitter. It is one way like, hey, maybe you should add a period there or something. That might be something you want to practice as well. Okay, so while I know that's a whole lot of information, Reed, that's a lot of information, but I promise you that can make your teaching life easier. You can have collaboration that make your life easier. Once you practice with your students and you set the norm for your classroom for collaboration to happen, or even with your teachers, you'll be a rock star. And there's no way. I mean, we're at a point now where I feel like if we can just survive the school day, whether it's virtually or not, we're all rocking it with the whole pandemic thing. Just remember, we are there to help the students understand the material the best way he or she can. That may mean that you have to grow as a teacher and think outside the box or not, but that's definitely something that you can use to help the kids become a better student. All right, so here's just to get some more ideas with me. This is my actual website, the SPED Tech Teacher. Or if you want to get in touch with me, Twitter is the best way to reach out to me. I love talking on Twitter. It's a great way. PLN, your professional learning network, is one of the best things that can happen. I did not realize how fast I went through the presentation, but that's okay. If you have ever done Slides-Mania, that's a really cool website. She has so many templates. It's unreal for both PowerPoint and Google Slide. All right, I am going to exit. I'm going to stop share. And yeah, that's it.
We want to open it for questions, Jessica. If anybody has any questions about anything, any other tips? I know some have dropped tips in the chat. We made sure to share all your resources, Jessica, so they have access to you, to your presentation.
I didn't mean for it to be so quick. Sorry. I just want
to okay. I'm the same way. I get very excited when I start talking, and I can keep going. All right.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you, Cynthia, for the suggestion. I'll have to check that out. That's what I love about these things, is just the collaboration you get from other people.
Yes.
I have a question. We have been using BrainPop. Love it, but we just added the ELL component of BrainPop. And I know you mentioned that you also use BrainPop for ESL or ELL. Did you use that part? And if you did, what are some of your thoughts and opinions about it? Because we just got it, so I haven't played with it yet.
I'm so jealous you have BrainPop. I got through a fit when we lost vocabulary, and after an even bigger fit when we lost BrainPop. Like, nobody asked me, like, I do tech trainings for our school. Nobody asked me about anything when they got rid of stuff. I was so upset. Like, I went to my new principal crying. I was like, really? That's not fair. So BrainPop ELL is fantastic. I think for students, especially in the younger grades, it is something that you can use. It might be really good if you're doing centers to have as a BrainPop time, or even if you just have 10 to 15 minutes extra to let the kids kind of play with it. The way I've done BrainPop for myself is the kids will like watch together as a group, watch a video, and then the kids would do the quiz by themselves or do the coding activity. We've also done the quiz like in partner groups and saw who did what best. So I think it's just one of those things you have to play with. I'm very jealous. BrainPop just, to me, does such a great job virtually explaining things. That is really cool. Like, they have a whole bunch of different resources for COVID that are great. They also have their September 11th one video was really cool as well. And it was a great way to introduce that to my kids, because the class that I watched it with, they were 7th graders. And one of my kids she's autistic. So if it's not relevant to her, she doesn't care. Like, she just, there's no filter. There's like no social filter. And she looked at me and she was like, why are we watching this? This doesn't matter. And I was like, oh, hold up, boo-boo. Like, hold on. And we watched the video, and I was kind of, I explained like, hey, I was a junior in high school, blah, blah, blah. And I think that maybe that kind of helped her understand a little bit, but I don't know. You never know. It's a day-to-day surprise with some of our kids who's going to do what. So I would definitely say BrainPop ELL is a great resource. So you definitely need to play with it and enjoy it because there's some really cool stuff.
Awesome.
That might have been way more information than you needed.
Thank you.
I always, these are so much better when you're in person because then you can the people can actually talk and it's not awkward sometimes.
Let's see. Let me just make an announcement. Jessica, if you guys are thinking about headed out, please head back to our bridge. That's the Zoom room from this morning for our big group. We have at about 3:45, it says, at about 3:45, we're going to be talking about tomorrow and what that looks like. So if you only signed up for today and you weren't sure about what an unconference is and the actual EdCamp experience itself, please head over there. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And then we'll be sharing our end of day survey. And if you'd like to be entered into our raffle, you need to fill out the end of the day survey. So head back over there. That's at about 3:45. You're more than welcome to stay here and talk with Jessica. If you have any questions about any of the amazing tools, Jessica, I feel like I'm listening to my own classroom. I use so many of those tools that you mentioned.
It's one of those things where, but I hate the one thing about technology is that while you can have so many great things, when technology fails, man, it sucks. It's gone. So that's one of those where it's everything's great until the internet stops working.
Yeah.
Kristen, are y'all back virtual or are y'all back to regular class?
We're still virtual, and I don't think, at least for my district, I don't think they're planning on going to. There was talk, so there has been talk especially where we're at in SoCal, about having cohorts. So, and they're looking at our special ed populations, and they're looking at our EL populations, and having special cohorts come on campus for in-person instruction. But the thing is, again, within my district, and we have a very strong union, which I'm very, very excited about. But the teachers at this time are not required to be in person. So while cohorts might be starting, I don't think the information has been disseminated that the teacher will not be in the classroom. They'll be at home still. And, the kids who are coming on campus will be in a room with a paraeducator. So that's going to be a shock to some parents, because I think they were under the impression, that teachers are going to be physically in the classroom, and that's not the case. So we'll see how that goes when parents start to figure that out.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think where I am is such it's kind of like Mayberry, if that reminds you anything. We're not very diverse at all, but it's that old Southern little town.
Oh, yeah.
A little big town. And I mean, I've had one kid come back from virtual due to FAPE. And I'm glad he came back because bless it. I'm much happier he's in my classroom than having to see him face to face or virtually. But it's weird. I wear a mask. I'm spraying down everything.
Are they making you guys be the point person for all the cleaning in between classes? Because you're middle school, so your kids switch, right? Switch classrooms?
I think it's personal preference, but I mean, I spray all my stuff down. I have paper on my desk. Do not come around my desk. Don't come around my stuff.
Have you seen, I've seen on social media, these teachers who've gone full out and did the whole barrier around their desk. And they're nope, you can't come near my desk. It's a 6-foot, it's the plexiglass, right? Around the teacher desk, because we are so used to having that, especially in special ed, having that proximity, right, with our students. And now we don't even get that,
How are you? Are you glad to be back in the regular classroom, or like back in the SPED classroom, or is it like completely different?
As opposed to being like a tech coach, like I have been, yeah, it is, you know, like I really missed the last 2 years that I've been a tech coach. I really missed having my own classroom. Like I missed having my kids and having maybe that control over accountability of what happens with my students, you know, and because you could see, you know, as a coach, I was working in 75 classrooms in our district, from TK through 5th, and going in and teaching lessons, and the model was supposed to be like a co-teaching model, right? Where I would go in, I'd work with the teacher and students. Unfortunately, some of the teachers thought it was extra planning time for them and babysitting for me. So they would leave the classroom and not really care, you know, what we were doing with technology. And they didn't, you know, I could tell each classroom in our district from 2nd all the way up through the middle school through 8th, they have one-to-one devices. And our primary classrooms, our TK, kinder and first, they have to share a cart, but usually there's like more than one roving cart on campus where they can be shared. But I could definitely tell, like the teachers who, I'd see them for lessons my first year, I was seeing them every other week. And then my 2nd year with them, I was seeing them because we lost one of our tech TOSAs, I was seeing them every 3 weeks. And even when I was seeing them every 3 weeks, I knew the teachers who had not pulled out the Chromebooks in the 3-week period I was gone, you know, which is just sad. They have the technology there, and these kids, you know, you think about deficits, right, that kids already have, and then just add to that tech, you know, the tech equity, you know, when they leave that classroom and then they go to the next classroom and their peers already have superior technology skills, just the technical skills of being able to use the Chromebook, even more so for students with special needs, you know. So I'm definitely glad to be back. Yeah.
So what are you doing exactly? I know you posted about it, but
so I teach 1st and 2nd grade. I'm a 1st and 2nd grade STC teacher. So that's like we have in California, we have STC classes, and so they're either labeled as like mild, moderate, or moderate to severe. And so I have a mild mod credential. So most of my students, though, in my classroom, like I have 11 students, and I want to say 9 of them have the primary disability as being autistic. So not necessarily an autism focused class, but a lot of my kids have autism. And then I have a couple with intellectual disabilities. So.
Girl, I think we're all somewhere on the spectrum.
I know.
Like if you think about it.
I know.
I hope that wasn't terribly awful.
No, it was good. It was good. Do you want to? I'm going to stop the recording.